Hello and welcome back to goldstocktrades.com. Today we have a returning guest, Mark Smith. Mark is CEO of Niocorp. Niocorp can be traded as NB on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and it also can be traded as NIOBF on the OTCQX. Thanks, Mark, for being here with us today.
Jeb, always a pleasure, and thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Niocorp's had an exciting year. You had a 3-phase drilling program showing that it's one of the highest grade niobium resources in the world, and especially in North America. And recently you just announced a preliminary economic assessment that discusses some of the economics of this project. Mark, explain to investors what they should be paying attention to here in this PEA.
Well, I think from my perspective, the thing that I focus on is the ability to generate cash on an annual basis. This facility, as we suspected from day one, is going to have a tremendous ability to generate cash, and that's going to be a tremendous ability to generate cash for a long period of time, and with I think a much lower risk profile associated with it as compared to almost every other mineral that is mined and processed and sold in the world today. So that's what I would like for people to get focused on, is the long mine life that we have and the ability for this company to generate cash flow for a very long time.
Mark, now that you have this PEA in hand, you've assembled a great team, both on the financial side and as on the offtake side. Talk to us about how this preliminary economic assessment will position Niocorp going forward.
Well, there's a couple of things that we've been working very hard on. Obviously, the main goal is to ensure that we continue at a very aggressive timeline to get the facility built and producing, and we'd like to start running some ore through our mill sometime in 2017. So that remains the main focus, and of course that means that we've got to get through all the technical work programs and to get the feasibility study out, which we're still looking at kind of an early September timeline for the feasibility study. But in between, we also wanted to address another issue that, as a junior mining company on the TSX venture, we were struggling with, and that is the ability to capture the attention of institutional investors. So we have also strategically positioned ourselves so that we have graduated from the venture exchange onto the full board TSX, and now we publish this preliminary economic assessment so that an institutional investor has the reputation of the TSX as well as a hard copy preliminary economic assessment that they can take into an investment committee, and we think it will open up doors in the institutional investment world for fundraising that Niocorp has not had access to before. We will be doing another fundraising shortly to make sure that we have the money in the treasury that we need to get to the end of the feasibility study, and then start the process of project financing later on this year. So these are all important steps that we need to take along the way, and we've got everything plotted out, and I think that we're moving things along at the timeline that we've suggested fairly well, and we're going to keep going down that path. We remain very passionate about this project. It's still the third richest and probably the second largest niobium ore body in the world. It's in an excellent jurisdiction, unbelievable local support, good ore grades, good mine life, and we've got our metallurgy really starting to come together now for this project. So I see everything that we need to make a positive project, and then when I take a look at the level of cash that this company can generate for a very long period of time, I think what we can provide an investor is a good level of certainty, which is always good for all of us.
And the commodity niobium, the pricing is much more stable than other commodities. Could you talk a little bit about the niobium market and the pricing, and the way to look at this study versus a gold company or a PGM company?
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is niobium is an extremely stable element to produce and sell when it comes to pricing. If you take a look at any charts that are prepared, for instance, Roskills or Metal Pages will prepare these. And if you convert everything back, let's just say to a 2013 dollar basis, what you'll find is that the pricing is virtually a flat line. It's very stable, very predictable. So you get very stable pricing, but it's also associated with a very nice increase in demand for the product every year as well, roughly a 4 to 6% compounded annual growth rate on the demand, and we don't see that slowing down anytime soon with the very strong interest in specialty steels that the world seems to have right now. So we just, the name of the game here is stability, stability, stability. And I think that our preliminary project economics are demonstrating that not only do we have a stable price environment, but we can have a very stable cash-generating entity here as well. And as an investor, I think certainty of returns is a pretty nice feature to have at this point in time.
When you're talking about valuations, one of the comparables to Elk Creek in North America is the Niobium mine, which was owned by IAMGOLD and was recently purchased for over 500 million US in late 2014. Having this PEA in hand, how does Niobium look to Elk Creek?
There's an awful lot of similarities in terms of them both being underground mines. Our ore grade is probably about twice as good as theirs. So that makes a difference. Metallurgy is slightly different between the two facilities, but they're to a large extent fairly similar on the economic side. What I think the big difference is, though, is the life of mine. When they announced the deal for the Niobium mine, it was clearly stated in the press release that the mine had an 8-year life. So it was a $500 million purchase for a mine that has 8 years left in its life. In our case, we've got a PEA out right now that is suggesting a 36-year mine life, and we know we've got a lot more resource that we can convert from inferred into measured and indicated. So we'll be there for a very long time. So I think you got to keep the mine life perspective on the two projects when you're comparing them and taking a look at different values. Now, Niobium, from what I understand, can extend their mine life. But as we all know, to undertake that effort, you're going to have to put a lot of capital into not only exploring or extending the resource through exploration, but also putting capital in to go after that additional resource. So there's going to be some capital expenditures involved in that effort as well. So it's a good comparison. I like the valuation. If you provide $500 million for 8 years of mine life, I think that bodes very well for what the valuation of Niocorp should be, given its 36-year mine life under this PEA and a $177 million cash-generating capability every year for 36 years. So I think it's a good comparison, but let's make sure that we give Niocorp the credit for the longer mine life.
Mark, Niocorp's not going to pause with this PEA announcement. You seem to have a busy 2015 project development timeline schedule. Talk to us about some of the project development plans going into the second, third, and fourth quarter in 2015.
What we're really focused on right now, Jeb, is getting this feasibility study done. And what that will require, of course, is to finish the metallurgy work. Most of our mini pilot plant test work is now done and behind us, and we will be starting the full pilot scale testing probably in early May. So we should be done with metallurgy, we think, kind of in the late June time frame. That will absolutely allow us to publish the feasibility study then in early September. Having that feasibility study in place in early September is very important because, as you know, we are already starting to work on project financing avenues, including putting a debt syndicate together and utilizing the German government loan guarantee programs that we're entitled to by virtue of having ThyssenKrupp as a 50% offtake partner with us. So we're continuing to work the financial side, continuing to work with the big banks on their due diligence so that when that feasibility study is done, we can immediately go into the equity fundraising that we'll do to fund the CapEx for this project. So there are a lot of moving parts, but the good part is that we've all been down this road before, so we know what has to move and when it has to move, and we're making sure that it all happens very sequentially, very aggressively, but keeping, good, sound, strategic thinking as part of this effort as well. So I remain very encouraged at the speed that we're going. We're making sure we have all the technical information to the level that it needs to be to reduce the risk on this project. And by reducing the risk, we just continue to make sure that cash generation capability over a 36-year mine life remains sound and strong for an investor that wants certainty.
Mark, as we go into the advanced development work for a feasibility study on the Elk Creek deposit, it's important to focus on permitting. You're located in Nebraska. Talk to us about building a mine, some of the community support that you've seen in Nebraska as we conclude here.
We have an outstanding situation in Nebraska. First of all, the state is run very well. The elected officials there have kept the unemployment rate as low as it is almost anywhere in the nation. On a state-by-state comparison, they have always run at a budget surplus. So this is a state that runs itself very well. They would also like to diversify their economy a little bit because they are highly dependent on agriculture and the insurance industry. So they are very welcoming to us, wide open arms when we come in, because they would like to diversify their economy and see mining become at least a part of their state economy. So every time we see elected officials, they're wanting to make sure that the regulatory agencies that we have to get permits through are doing the work that's necessary and getting us through the system as necessary. And my comment to them is, first of all, I want to make sure we meet every single requirement that we have to, but we certainly do appreciate the attention that we're given every time we come in the door to one of these regulatory agencies. They are there to help us get through the process. So I don't anticipate any issues on the permitting side. This is fairly straightforward. We'll get all of our air emission permits that we need to for any emission source. We'll make sure that we have little or no impact on surface and groundwaters of the state, and we'll comply with all the disposal requirements for tailings. So it's going to be a fairly straightforward process. And again, the elected officials, the agency officials all seem to want this to happen in as fast a way as possible. So they're helping us. And then the local community, of course, is what I really smile about every time I think about it. They couldn't be more warm and friendly. They are excited to have this new business in their community. Probably, upwards of 300 new jobs directly at the mine itself. So, we've got, I think, 100% community support on this project right now. That's been something that we take very seriously. We know it has to be earned, and we plan on keeping that level of respect and that level of support by continuing to be honest and trustworthy in everything we do with them. So overall, Jeb, I think we're in as good of a jurisdiction as we can be when it comes to permitting and community support.
Mark Smith, CEO of Niocorp, which can be traded as NB on the TSX and as NIOBF on the OTCQX. Thanks so much for being here with us today and for giving us an update on the recent preliminary economic assessment.
It's always my pleasure, Jeb, and look forward to the next time with, continuing good news and advancement of the project.